Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Edna White, and I am your host of Keeping It Real on Purpose. We are today delving into real talk, real growth. And we know in this next 15 minutes, we're going to be diving into something that we don't always face, and it's social anxiety and how it often walks hand in hand with failure. Joining me today is Lisa Jacovsky,
hmm
author, mental health advocate, and someone who knows firsthand what it's like to wrestle with anxiety and still show up in life and work. Lisa's going to share her personal story, how social anxiety shaped her journey, and how some of the most uncomfortable failures turned out to be the greatest teachers. So grab your coffee, take a breath, not a break, and let's get into the conversation. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So let's start off with your story.
So I've been in my field for 11 years. I was always that person that raised my hand first, that always had the answer in class. And once I hit middle school, I kind of had my social anxiety triggered and kind of went into myself. I
Mhm.
became very, very quiet in class, didn't want to participate, raise my hand. It was a struggle to do presentations.
Yeah.
I used to rate my professor for my public speaking class. You but getting into the field really pushed me and challenged me when it came to that.
Yeah.
I was really thrust into having training staff and having to be in front of staff and talk to them,
Right.
or, just going up to a house and being like, "Hey, how are you? I'm your therapist."
Yeah. Yeah.
So getting into this field really has pushed me to grow more and kind of
Mhm.
break out of that shell that I went into when I was 13.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how does that feel? What does that feel like in your experience, that social anxiety?
So it's a fear, even during when I first got into the field and first was told, "Oh, hey, you're going to learn how to train, you're going to have to get up in front of them."
Hmm.
It's an overwhelming feeling of just fear. I don't want
Right.
to do it. Everything in me, pins and needles, is telling me, "Don't get up there." Don't It's screaming at me, "Don't do it." It's
Screaming at you. Yeah, it does scream.
it's everything in your body is telling you to do the opposite of what is required of you.
Right. Right.
So,
That's
it's very difficult to kind of move
Mhm.
past and then work on.
Yeah. So how I know that you said it started in when you were 13. So how did it affect your personal and professional life? Like what did it stop you from doing?
Oh, it definitely stopped me from really showing who I am in class and making relationships with teachers, professors that could have
Okay.
helped my growth and helped my career and everything grow.
Hmm.
It definitely has affected me in social situations. It's easier now, but there's definitely still times where I'm in large groups and I clam up and I
Hmm.
don't know what to say. Or,
Right.
I'm with a group of my friends, 2 of them go over there, one stays with me, I'm like, what do I say?"
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's made it difficult to make relationships with coworkers for a
That's
very
good.
long time. It made it difficult to make relationships with my classmates when I was in school. And it definitely makes it hard to, sometimes maintain relationships too,
Oh, that's good.
do I reach out to my friend and say, "Hey"? Do I call? It's that kind of anxiety of not knowing what's the best thing to do that still comes up at times that I work on.
Oh, yeah. That's really good because, for the audience, I will tell you that, I get so many comments in from, the audience about, how do I, it's a lot of how do I, how or how to's, and when we talk about these things, social anxiety is really something, it's real, it's part of the fear of, it's not just the fear of speaking in front of people. Let's just get that right. Because you speak on the phone, you're speaking to somebody, right?
It's a
Right?
lot
You,
more than
if you
that.
have select people that you speak to, you're speaking to them. And most of the time when I do, talk to people or I coach, I talk to them, say, well, you speak in front of people all the time. You just don't know it. I think it's deeper than that. So you're explaining what, and your audience, listen to this. She's
Mhm.
explaining what social anxiety really is. It's past that part of
Mhm.
speaking up front. correct?
Exactly. It's more than just public speaking. It's, around people that are new to me that I don't know very
Mhm.
well. It's my friends that I've had for 10 plus years. It's no big deal to text them or call
Right.
them. But, if it's like new friends or
Yeah.
especially my classmates who I will say
Mhm.
have always been amazing in all my degrees, it's not their fault that I get super nervous or turn beet red when
Right.
I have to talk in front of them. You
Yes.
so it's something that plagues you in anything, really, any kind of social situation. And even now, if I'm in a large crowd and new people, it can be hard to come up with things to talk about and say and,
Right. Right.
want to talk.
Yeah. What strategies have helped you manage and overcome it?
Mindfulness is a really big part of my life, so I will close my eyes, take a deep breath,
Oh, that's
and
good.
remind myself of who I am too.
Yes.
Exactly. So, it's more than just the breathing part. It's really reminding yourself who you are because our mind really controls us more than we think,
Yeah.
and we have to push those negative thoughts away. So
Oh,
there's
that's
also
good.
a technique where you acknowledge the thought and say, "Hey, thank you, mind." And that allows you to move on from it. So I do that a lot. And
Mhm.
there's also another technique from the book Happy Thoughts by Stephen Hayes,
Mhm.
where you say the negative thought in a really silly voice, like Donald Duck.
Yeah.
So I will do that too at times.
Uh-huh.
It makes you laugh. And it's really about accepting what your mind is saying and not dwelling on it.
Mhm.
So I
Oh,
do
that's good.
that.
Mhm.
Um, and I do affirmations a lot. So when
Yeah.
I close my eyes and take a deep breath, I'll say an affirmation too, and that really helps to me to remind me of who I am,
Mhm.
why I'm doing this, and
Mhm.
it pushes me to move forward.
Ooh, those are some powerful helps for our audience. I really like that. So I
Mm.
wanted to shift a little bit to how your mind said to you, because you're not being social, this is failure. You know, share a little bit about how that kind of was translated into your mind and how you kind of shifted out.
So it's also about the fact that, I've been bullied for this before. So, my
Uh,
mind kind of goes there and that's what it brings
right.
up is those negative things from the past of where, someone was like, I'm mad at you because you're not talking to everybody, you're just sitting here,
Yes.
So when
Hmm.
I hear that, what I do is I remind myself of the times that I have talked to other people. I remind
Okay.
myself of who I am,
Hmm.
and I remind myself that who cares what other people think,
Right.
That was the past. That is their thinking, but their thinking and their opinion does not have to affect me. I have to be happy with myself, and I'm happy with how I'm interacting and how I'm talking, then that's all that should matter. So
Ooh,
that's what I mean when I say remind myself of who I am. I
yeah.
remind myself of the person I can be and have been in those positive times.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
That is really, really good. So I heard you talk about self-compassion. It's a little bit more than the self-awareness, but I heard you talking about how good you're treating yourself, self-compassion. And it plays a role in your journey through anxiety and setbacks. How does that work? How do you do that? How do you just start loving on yourself? I heard you talk about saying it in a crazy, a little silly voice, so that you're not going to bother me. How do you kind of translate that and give a few helpful hints to the audience?
I think writing things down is really awesome. So, I've had the techniques in my phone. I've done reminders to the point where I don't need them anymore, and reading the book, The Happiness Trap by Stephen Hayes, it makes you do the techniques on yourself so that you
Yes.
know how to coach other people to do it.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the best way to figure out what works. I think that's really the best thing to do is figure out what works for you and
Okay.
try
Okay.
everything, try all the different stuff. And I think one of the most important things too is give yourself a break.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be perfect. So if I go out last weekend, let's say, and I was in a group and I had a hard time, I'm going to give myself a break and be like, that was just an off day.
Yeah.
Remind myself of the times where I did talk and I had a great time and,
Hmm.
things like that. So I think it's really when it comes to self-compassion is give yourself a break and try all different kinds of techniques to see what works for you.
Oh, that's good. Oh my goodness, that's really good. That is excellent. So we're going to shift a little gear here now. So we talked, the audience, and you also heard, she also said the phone is not just for phone calls and texting, but it's to put the tools that you need inside there to use them. Who
Exactly.
would have known?
100%. I write a lot of things down in my notes and I go back and reflect on it. And I was talking to a student today, but I take pictures of certain things on Instagram,
Right.
affirmations, quotes, and I actually go back and read them to remind myself. And,
Very
sometimes
good.
I'll read it, take a deep breath just to relax, leave my Instagram alone for like 3-4 hours, and then go back to it so I can just let it kind of like sink in. And it kind of helps me get through the day like that too.
Oh, that's good. If you were to go back to your younger self, stay this age now, go back to your younger self, what would you tell her?
Keep going and it gets better.
Oh, that's
Keep going and it gets better.
good.
Life is rough, but it's all gonna work out as long as you keep going.
That's excellent, excellent. What message do you have for someone struggling with social anxiety and afraid of failing in our audience? What would you tell them?
It's not a failure as long as you're happy. It's what makes you happy. It's what is best for you. So maybe you're not in the mental space right then to be social. That's okay. Remove yourself and do what makes you happy. And who cares whether people think? And, try the different techniques. Find what works for you that will make you reach your potential, not what everybody else around you thinks has to be your potential. Think that's the biggest thing is you have to do what's for you, not what
Mhm.
society, not what everyone around you expects. What is the right thing for you? And once you have that, I feel like everything just kind of sets into place and it's a much easier that way.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it first, audience, and I'm so glad that Lisa was here to kind of share this with us. Very exciting stuff, very good stuff, and the first-hand stuff. We need to make some hashtags for this. So, any of you that are hearing this today, I want you to hashtag her. Everything that she said, especially the last part. It's your happiness. Hashtag it's your happiness. That's what matters because we pay so much attention to everything else, and that's what gets us kind of crazy. Wow, this was a powerful conversation, Lisa. Big thank you to you for being so open and honest and about your journey because you did it. And big kudos to you. Even though you
Thank
had that
you.
social anxiety and those fears, you learned, girl. You learned. You got this. You got this.
I
There's one
really
thing today that I know that I've learned. Your fear doesn't define you, and neither does your failure. And you taught that to me. Both are great teachers if you let them. Thank you again for turning this into the extraordinary 15 minutes of fun.
I appreciate it. This is not what I expected it to be. I definitely wrote down the wrong thing, but this was probably one of my favorite ones. And I'm very excited. One of my students asked for this today. So I'm very excited to send this to her
Oh,
afterwards.
that is so good. And
Yeah.
thank you for being here.
Thank
Well,
you.
ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. Remember, hashtag, I want to make some hashtags for Lisa this time around. Let's go.
I love
Get
it.
some hashtags under that content on the bottom of this video. Let's go. Let's do it. This is Brenda White of Keeping It Real on Purpose and my esteemed guest, Lisa hold on, Jacovsky. Don't you guys?
Jacovsky.
Oh, see, I still messed it up. See? No, it's not. Go ahead. Go with me. Go with me, Lisa. Go ahead. Jacovsky.
Jacovsky.
Javosky?
Jacovsky.
Just see? All letters jumbled. But you guys, you know me. You know I try my best. This dyslexia hits me and it goes all directions. But thank you so much for being here. You're the best. See you next time around.